can start first, and I will take over. And then maybe between two slots, we can have a short panel discussion. And then we move on to after slot one, we have a short panel discussion for all the presenters. And then we can actually move on to the slot two and have another short panel discussion at the end. Maybe for each presentation, and afterward, we can have one or two questions, quick questions. What do you think? This is my thought.
Yeah, let's proceed like this.
Okay, great.
So, welcome everyone to this session 2D, where we will talk and we'll see presentation and then a discussion on personally one of my favorite topics, that of circular economy. So in the slot one, first of all, let me just introduce myself and Professor Dr. Xing, who we will co-chair, as you just heard, the two slots of this session. So I don't want to have any further delay. So let's ask the first presenter, Stefan Luther from Vienna University of Economics and Business, to give us his presentation. A reminder for everyone, you have 8 minutes for the presentation, then a couple of minutes for a few questions. And at the end of the slot, we will have a discussion based on the 3 presentations we will see. So welcome again, and Mr. Luther, the virtual floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and good morning, everybody. From my side, it's a pleasure to be here and to present an online tool called the SCP HET, the Sustainable Consumption Production Hotspot Analysis Tool. I think I don't have the right to move my slides, apparently.
Yes, just...
So while this is being fixed,
sorry, I'll just come back to the. Sorry for that.
No worries. Yeah, so during the last years, we have been collaborating with UNEP and with 3 subdivisions of UNEP, the Life Cycle Initiative, the International Resource Panel, and the One Planet Network.
It should be okay now, Mr. Luther? Yes.
No, doesn't work. Now I should be able, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, here we go. So we have been working together with 3 subdivisions of the UNEP, the UN Environmental Programme, in the context of sustainable consumption and production, which is a technical term contributing substantially to poverty alleviation and the transition towards low carbon and green economies. I'm sure many of you might be aware of the creation of the 10-year framework of programs on SCP, the Sustainable Consumption and Production topic, at Rio+20, and the topic is of so much importance that there is even a standalone goal under the SDGs, which is SDG 12, where the first target calls on the implementation of this 10-year framework of programs on SCP in all countries. SCP is a very cross-cutting topic with a strong relation to climate action and sustainable supply chains. It's a bit tricky. Now we can go on. But the issue is that many countries still lack the expertise as well as the technical and financial resources to, for instance, carry out overarching assessments to identify hotspot areas of unsustainable consumption and production, but also to provide information on the related drivers or cover more complex issues like, for instance, supply chain-wide impacts. I see an interesting frame appearing every now and then. So the aim of the SCP HET tool is really to support the achievement of SDG 12 through comprehensive and scientifically sound empirical analyses. And in the following slides, which are only a few, I would like to point you to the most important aspects of this tool. Oh, come on. Yeah, here we can go. So the link is a bit lengthy, to be honest. It's scp-het.lifecycleinitiative.org. The tool was commissioned, as I said, by the 3 sub-organizations of the UNEP. And the objective was really to set up a state-of-the-art, user-friendly online tool for easy access to data. It aims at, as I said, supporting science-based policy frameworks for SCP, and it identifies the hotspots areas of unsustainable production and consumption to support setting priorities in national SCP and climate policies. The very important aspect is that it focuses on both perspectives, the domestic perspective, as well as the supply chain-wide pressures and impacts. This steering the slides is really a bit of pain. And the main methodological core is an environmentally extended input-output modeling combined with life cycle assessment. We developed this tool together with CSIRO and the University of Sydney, both located in Australia. And there are various aspects of the tool. Module 1 would provide key information on a country's environmental performance and the policy context. Module 2 provides a wide range of indicators and analytical options for hotspot analysis on the national level, on the sectoral level, and on individual supply chains. And then there is a sub-tool called the standard reports, where all the main figures and analyses of the data related to specific topics, like, for instance, circular economy aspects and so forth, are put together and even downloadable as a PDF for policy analysts and policy developers to get an insight in a country's situation. There's also an online download tool to get access to all the data, and a clear method description to make sure that everybody understands how the tool works and how to interpret the data and the results. And there's a wealth of gadgets to improve the user friendliness, like explanatory videos, like a user journey guiding you through the tool and how to use it for different topics to analyze them and so forth. Very quickly, what is the coverage of the tool? We cover currently 7 different environmental categories, from emissions, raw material use, biodiversity loss, and so forth. And we translate the pressure data via LCA coefficients as suggested by or recommended by the UNEP into environmental impacts. And in addition to that, we have a wealth of socioeconomic data integrated into the tool in order to set into relation the economic information with the environmental information. Bear in mind that the purpose was really to cover all countries in the world, or almost all countries in the world. So the thematic coverage of the tool is also related to data availability, of course, because we need global databases for all these environmental categories. By that means, we have a thematic coverage of quite a wealth of UN SDGs, and the idea is really to expand this and to further link the tool to political topics like the Fit for 55 package, or like the climate action of the United Nations, the NDC development, the Due Diligence Act of the EU, government footprints, and so forth and so on, or also sustainable or unsustainable mining. Which brings me to my final slide, which is an outlook to further developments. First, what we think is really necessary is to integrate a broad concept of uncertainty of the visualized indicators to make sure that users understand how much they can trust such international databases and modeling results. To, of course, also enlarge the SAP HEAD coverage for more metal mining and processing sectors. Also to expand the options to analyze supply chains. We also think about developing a PPP adjusted sectoral emission intensity ratio and focus on individual high impact sectors like the clothing sector or the food sector or other sectors. And of course, there are also other features to be developed. The issue is really that while the tool is already used by many UN organizations and stakeholders, it's still a question how the finances or the funding of the tool, the further development of the tool is to be organized. So we look forward to further collaborate with the UNEP and to further develop this amazing tool. And by that means, I say thanks a lot. Here's again the link, or you just enter SAP HEAD into Google and you might be quicker. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luther, and also for staying within the time frame of the 8 minutes. So if we have any questions from the audience?
Can I have a question here?
Yes, please.
Alexandros, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Stefan. It's a really interesting talk and about this tool. My question is related to the data methods. I wonder actually how you establish the data for the this impact analysis when you apply it at the economy level, and also you take into consideration of the social economic indicators. How you it looks like to me that your data method would be the input and output based, and may draw upon the monetary value of the trade and economic activities. So I just would like to see that if you can help to unpack a bit more about your data methods.
Yeah, sure. I think I could give a whole course about environmentally extended input-output analysis, but that's not the purpose here. Input-output or environmentally extended input-output analysis is basically using economic data about trade relationships between individual sectors within a country, but also between countries. And to this trade data, environmental data on, say, raw material extraction or greenhouse gas emission per sector is added. And then the information on the trade relationships is used to estimate the flows of the raw materials or of land use or whatsoever through the economy. I know this sounds now very theoretical, and I would indeed need more time to explain this. But by that means you can estimate whose final demand, where in the world, is causing or is inducing raw material extraction or land use or greenhouse gas emissions elsewhere in the world through triggering the trade relationships along supply chains, where at the beginning or throughout the supply chain, raw material extraction or greenhouse gas emission production or land use is happening. So that's basically the logic. And the pressures are translated into impacts via life cycle coefficients or coefficients stemming from life cycle assessment, where it's estimated which amount of raw material extraction is causing which environmental impact, or which amount of economic process is causing greenhouse gas emissions, or which type of greenhouse gas emissions is causing which greenhouse gas potential or climate change potential.
Okay, thank you. So it means that actually the assessment will be subjected to the variation of the currency and exchange, right? And if and the inflation.
Sure, but the whole at the very core is a global input-output database, which is called Gloria. And there, all these aspects have been adjusted and harmonized already. So you have a big system covering, I think, currently 180 or 190 countries, where the whole trade relation information on inflation, on exchange rates, and so forth is being fed in order to make sure that that you have a harmonized system and you can directly compare results for different countries.
Thank you.
Thank you too. And I think I saw it somewhere, the data are open access, right? And the app is for free.
Exactly. The app is for free, of course, and also all the data used is of global coverage and of open access. That were some of the preconditions for the whole tool. And the app explains very clearly which data have been used. Also, the links are provided to the original data sources. There is a very comprehensive technical description of the whole tool. So the purpose was really to make this as clear and as accessible as possible in order to provide users with all the information they need.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move to the next presenter, Mr. Nick Florin from the University of Technology in Sydney. So he's here. Yes, I can see him. So welcome, and please, you may start.
Thank you. I'm assuming that someone else is going to be sharing my slides.
Yes, correctly. Just a minute there.
And also that
the control, just a minute.
To move on, I suppose.
There you go.
Okay. I can just still see the generic slide. So if you could move on to my slide pack. Equally, if they're not at hand, I can share the screen. Let me know what makes sense.
Yes, Mr. Florin, yeah, now you're a host. You can share your screen if you want.
Okay, will do. I've just brought them. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. Okay, not in presentation mode. There we go. Okay, thank you. So can you now see my screen? I'm assuming so. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country that I'm speaking to you from or zooming in from. I'm actually sitting in the otherwise abandoned offices of the UTS City campus, which is located on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And for those that perhaps are not following Australian news, we're currently have a referendum, and it's asking the question of whether there should be a voice to Parliament, which is essentially an advisory body to government for First Nations people. And while it's sort of a symbolic act, it sort of represents the first step in a much broader process determined, by consultation with Aboriginal people. And I think a successful referendum would demonstrate a commitment to change, to really address Indigenous disadvantage. And if the outcome goes the other way, I feel quite pessimistic about the capacity of the government and Australia to support transformational change that's required to transition to a more circular economy. So today I wanted to share some findings, very high level, from a recent assessment that was sort of the first comprehensive evaluation of product stewardship activity, including extended producer responsibility activity in Australia, with the aim to evaluate the effectiveness of the product stewardship and EPR initiatives in terms of managing and reducing environmental and human health of products and packaging and materials throughout the whole life cycle. So in this study, we identified 106 existing or emerging initiatives, and we classified them by organisational type. And so that means whether it was a collective initiative where a number of businesses putting similar products onto the market are working together to address a problem, or whether it was an individual business initiative. We organised by the regulatory model. So in Australia, there's 3 main models that underpin these initiatives. They can be mandatory, which is essentially designed and led by government. They can be co-regulatory, where the government establishes rules and obligations and ensures compliance, but business essentially delivers against the rules and obligations, and then also voluntary. And we classified them by product class and also life cycle focus, which is a particular relevance for reflecting on how they support transition to a circular economy. And to assess effectiveness, we collated and assessed all the publicly reported data on the environmental and social and economic performance of the initiatives. And finally, we also surveyed consumers and businesses and local government representatives to understand awareness of product stewardship and EPR initiatives and how these stakeholders are engaging with them, and what are the barriers and enablers to support greater participation. We take quite a broad definition of product stewardship, recognising that it includes actions to reduce and manage the impact across the whole product life cycle, including at design and consumption, and also at end of life. And furthermore, while we acknowledge that designers and makers, sellers and users of products have a role, the primary responsibility rests with those putting the products onto the market, the financial responsibility. So examples of the sorts of initiatives focusing on design and production is the successful phase out of microbeads in personal care products. At the consumption or use phase, there are examples of initiatives providing information to consumers to inform better use of products, but also this includes new business models, encouraging repair and reuse. And there's an example of IKEA that has a second-hand furniture buyback initiative. And then at end of life, it's about providing drop-off and collection points and supporting new recycling industries and new end markets for recycled products. So an example is a used oil stewardship scheme, and this is the one example of a mandatory scheme in Australia that's incentivised the establishment of new recycling industries, but also new end markets for the reprocessed oil. So with this lens, we classified the range of initiatives that are active and emerging. 60 of them are collective schemes and 47 individual business initiatives, and the vast majority, 88 voluntary industry-led initiatives. And so the remaining 18 regulated, and these are mostly initiatives focused on the state and territory-based container deposit schemes, a program focused on televisions and computers, and this oil stewardship scheme. In terms of other products in focus, the majority of the focus, or the largest focus, is on packaging, followed by electronic products, clothing, textiles, and buildings. In terms of the life cycle focus, which is relevant to thinking about how these initiatives are supporting circular economy, in the case of the collective schemes, the major focus really is on the post-consumption stage, with an emphasis on resource recovery and take-back services. Whereas in the case of the individual business initiatives, we saw a much greater focus evenly across the whole life cycle, including the elimination of hazardous materials and new circular business models. So consistent with this, we also looked at how the initiatives are reporting, and this table shows the different performance indicators being reported by collective and individual schemes, and you can see collective schemes on the left-hand side. The main indicators being reported after market share, focused on the number of collection points and waste collection volumes, which is very much focused on end of life, whereas in the case of individual business initiatives, there was a much broader focus on emissions reduction and supply chain sustainability, as well as efforts to redesign products or packaging or indeed processes. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to go straight to the concluding remarks. So overall, we observed that product stewardship initiatives is effective in managing and reducing the environmental and human health impacts of products and packaging throughout their life cycle. However, the level of effectiveness really varied subject to how the initiatives were established. Certainly in the case of collective schemes, regulation was very much aligned with better performance in terms of achieving the stated objectives. We see that the approach definitely provides businesses with an implementation pathway to operationalize circular economy objectives, whether it's designing out waste or pollution or keeping materials in the economy for as long as possible. However, considering that the major focus on end of life, and this is again particularly in the case of the collective initiatives, there's opportunity for greater focus at the production and consumption life cycle stages, and that will equate to the delivery of greater environmental and social benefits. So in terms of improving the effectiveness, there's a clear need for targeted regulation addressing free riders and focusing on specific priority products, including e-products, packaging and mattresses. And we also identified the opportunity for targeted financial assistance to support emerging initiatives that are focusing on designing out waste and higher order interventions in the supply chain. But I'll leave it at that. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Nick, for this very interesting summary of the study on different product stewardship initiatives in Australia. So any questions from the audience for Nick? Yes, please, Katharina.
Thank you. Nick, I was just wondering, how is the Australian Plastics Pact actually influencing initiatives and driving the designing out of problematic and unnecessary plastics? Because that's also obviously an initiative that is not like an EPR, right? But there are a lot of retailers signing up to it, which feeds back to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Global Plastic Pact treaty. So I'm not sure if you have read that at all. But yeah, I would just be interested if you can share any insights from how they are doing in that regard, because in South Africa, they are quite strong, actually.
Yeah, so I think the ANZPAC, which sort of establishes targets for packaging being placed on the market to either be recyclable or compostable or reusable, as well as recycling targets. I think in the Australian context, we also have these national packaging targets, which align somewhat with the ANZPAC targets, and these are for 2025. It includes 70% of all plastic packaging to be recycled, and currently we are at about 18 or 19% of plastic packaging to be recycled. I mean, I think the target setting is important, and it sort of sets a clear direction, but we're a long way off achieving those targets, and they're voluntary targets, which I think is also a limiting factor. And what we're seeing at the moment is a whole lot of regulatory reform around packaging, and I think the direction it's going is there to be much sort of firmer mandated targets around particular packaging classes. But we're very much in the thick of these reforms at the moment, and there's a bit of uncertainty. That's at the national level, and then at state and territory levels, there's various bans around single-use, problematic and unnecessary packaging. But I think, I think there's space for voluntary targets, but sort of supported by complementary and targeted regulations is going to lead to faster progress, I think.
Thank you, Nick. Just quickly, there's a question pop up in the chat by Gustavo. Do you have any refunds for packaging, as some countries have been doing so? Any comments?
Yes, we do. And the slide that I missed actually provided some characteristics that we identified that make these initiatives particularly effective in achieving their kind of objectives to manage environmental or social impact. And financial incentives was one of the ones that was highlighted as being, like a key characteristic. And we do have container deposit schemes that offer refunds for consumers, and compared to initiatives without these incentives for behaviour change, the collection rates are significantly higher. But then there's also examples where incentives are offered to encourage collaborations and connections within the supply chain. So incentives for sorters and recyclers that are calibrated around the quality of the recyclate that produce. So those equally seem to be quite effective in improving the outcomes.
Thank you, Nick, for clarifying that. So maybe it's time to move on to the next presentation. The next presenter is Katharina Gerhering. So that the topic is on the South Africa Circular Economy Platform. So maybe over to you, Katharina.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can already go to the next slide.
Katharina, you have control of the screen.
Oh, okay,
Maybe
perfect. Let me, it doesn't seem to work on, oh no, okay, sorry, there's a lag maybe. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit around the circular economy. Thanks so much. And well, at the moment, circular economy, there's not one definition. ISO is obviously in process of defining the circular economy, which I find highly problematic, especially from the different contexts and perspectives that we're speaking, especially also culturally seen. In South Africa, so far, the narrative around the circular economy has been very resource-focused, waste-focused. And obviously, the circular economy is a systems thinking approach. And it really, I think one of the speakers just said, it is very much about transformation, right? It's also how we perceive values. So at the heart of circular economy is restorative and regenerative by design. And we're supposed to decouple economic growth from the use of resources. And one of our leading scientists at the CSIR in South Africa, Professor Linda Godfrey, has framed this quite nicely. She said the circular economy is about national resource security in support of socioeconomic development through sustainable resource utilization. And here the key factor is really about socioeconomic development in a country such as South Africa. Let me see if the slide works again. Perfect. So South Africa is around about 7% circular. It's very much, the study was very resource focused. Again, you can see on the right-hand side, the Sankey diagram. So it shows all the materials flowing through our economy at the moment. So we are a little bit below the global average, which sits around about 7.2%. And obviously this number is rather devastating because global circularity was a few percentage higher as a few years ago. So we are extracting more, and South Africa is a prime example of a society that is very much based, or the economy is very much based around resource extraction, but we don't process our resources. So the resources leave the country and then we buy the goods back. So within the COVID pandemic, it was very clear also the African continent is reliant on other countries to deliver on, for example, healthcare technologies, right? But the resources are being harvested on the continent. We are very much, our energy is very much fossil fuel based. Coal is our predominant energy delivery, and we currently are again at load stage 6. So they have to shed a lot of megawatts from the net. So at the moment we have around about 6 hours of planned energy interruptions in certain areas. So you can imagine how much of an impact that has on an economy if actually businesses need to then install diesel generators. What we also now see is that people actually start to install solar panels and try to get off the grid because the grid is unfortunately not reliable. We don't invest very much in our build up the domestic stock. So even Europe, that is very much well developed in form of its infrastructure, develops, actually puts more domestic stock back into the economy. We do have high pockets of circularity, and it's very much related to packaging waste, such as plastics and papers, sometimes also glass, which is due to the informal sector. So we have a whole informal sector economy that actually harvests those resources before they end up on landfills or before they are being illegally dumped. So there is high pockets of circularity, but the question is there, how do people actually work, under which working conditions do they actually retrieve it, and what do we label as circular economy jobs as well? We do have quite a bit of bio-based flows in the economy. However, there, our agriculture and forestry sectors are very much focused on monocultures, also very problematic looking at the biodiversity, as South Africa is one of the mega diverse countries worldwide like Australia. So Circular South Africa's mission is to facilitate cooperation, coordination, and networking in the quadruple helix. So we really want to bring together businesses, government, knowledge institutions, and civil society to accelerate the circular economy in the country. We do see that South Africa has quite a drive around the circular economy. There have been quite a bit of research studies happening. The circular economy was first mentioned in a white paper by the Department of Science and Innovation. And we do have key players in the circular economy field in South Africa, which is fantastic. However, the approach is still very much siloed, and is very much about breaking down silos and bringing in new players within the circular economy ecosystem, so that we also have a Department of Minerals and Energy actually sitting at the table, or associations that represent the municipalities as they have to deliver on certain services, obviously, to the citizens. With me on the call is actually also Bernd from the NCPC. So they are also a key stakeholder of accelerating the circular economy transition. And what we're really trying to do is bring together all the different stakeholders. And Circular South Africa has 3 strategic pillars. It's around knowledge sharing and capacitation, because even though circular economy is practiced, it's not always named circular economy. So it's very much about bringing that knowledge to stakeholders, that there are other solutions out there, and that we don't fall into the pitfall of doing lock-ins and, for example, installing technologies that are not technically context specific. Then we also want to facilitate partnerships and cooperation, also for international funders to come into the country so that we can direct them to the correct institutions. And we are very much looking at the matchmaking aspects of bringing the right partners together. And then obviously we want to facilitate the transition by creating work groups and actually also support policy decision-making. So Circular South Africa, we started off with building the platform beginning of this year. So we're still rather new. We had an exploratory phase in 2022 speaking to all the different stakeholders, conducting interviews to see if there's actually appetite for such a platform. And we have then started to create a platform. The idea is really then to have a website where we also have a knowledge hub where we collect all the different documents around the circular economy and where we actually connect users with one another. So for example, the Australian Circular Economy Hub, with those people we have already connected to see how they're actually building up their transition and the narrative around that. Yeah, that is basically it from my side. If you have questions, please get in touch with me. We also have a LinkedIn page, and then the website will be up very, very soon so that we can actually support the different stakeholders that can come together and hopefully start a broader discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. So, do you have any question for Katerina regarding her introduction of the South Africa Circular Economy Network? Maybe we'll have time for one quick question before we move to the panel.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, please, Nick.
Oh, you mentioned, well, thank you for your presentation. And it makes me think perhaps I misheard your question, but my question is how important do you think training and skills and reskilling is in terms of accelerating the transition?
That's a really good question. And maybe I left out the just aspect, right? In the South African context, we have youth unemployment is at the moment at 50 to 60%, and youth is until the year of 35 around about. And average unemployment is 30%, right? And now we see also we're trying to transition away from coal to renewable energy, like we see in Australia as well. And obviously this transitioning is happening in other sectors as well. And we need to take those people along. And unfortunately, at the moment, there is very much, the discussion is very energy focused, and there are some initiatives to upskill people so that they transition. But I don't think there is a coherent strategy. And I do think this is absolutely crucial. And it's also absolutely crucial that we actually capacitate the municipalities' officers on the ground. And then it's not just a waste management discussion, because at the moment, the municipalities that have actually taken up a CE narrative, it usually sits in the environment and in the waste management departments. It doesn't sit with any like budgeting or economics. So skilling, knowledge sharing, and making people aware of what the circular economy as a framework can actually do for a country to also accelerate its economic position is really, really key. Yeah. So capacitation, absolutely crucial.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think that we finished the first slot of 3 presentations. Now we can have a quick mini panel discussion with basically for all the 3 wonderful presenters that I talk. So yeah, some of the questions have been asked before and directed in each individual presentation. But now, since we have 3 together, maybe we can actually if there's a common theme, a common question that cut across, the 3 different talk, and certainly we can actually raise the questions or direct the question to any of the 3 wonderful panelists, and or maybe we'll just raise a question at whether any of the panelists have the views that can share. So welcome. Any particular questions? It can be a question for all 3 presenters, or target on a particular topic of their presentation. Maybe I just initiated one of the first questions and just to see how it goes. My question is that actually for all 3 presenters, we talk about the circular economy. And very much as we know that today, most of the focus on the circular economy initiatives are on the life and end of life, recycling and recover resources, as Nick mentioned about, in his study. Whether actually my question is about the consumption side. What do you see the address of the consumption issues, which are at the upfront of the life cycle, and in relation to the circular economy? Because that I think that I see that one of the issues challenges to the circular economy is that the address very much at the end of life stage, where actually the pressure comes from the consumption or overconsumption, and how actually you bring these two sides of the impact together. Whether actually is any current initiatives in place, whether actually in South Africa or in one of the initiatives that or in Australia or that globally that actually address the consumption issues and embrace reduction of consumption as part of the circular economy initiatives. I think it's a long one, question, but just wonder whether any of the three presenters have can share with us your thought. Please, Stefan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, here's Stefan speaking. I think from the conceptualization of the circular economy and also how it is focused on by the European Commission, but also by the UN, it's not one very important aspect of the circular economy are the alternative business models, right? Which is about reuse and sharing and so forth. I know that especially in the construction sector in Europe, reuse is becoming more and more a very hot topic. So the question of how you can steer from also a legal point of view, but also from a technical point of view, the construction sector towards a sector which is reusing material without demolishing, without having to recycle, but really using the same material one more time, or a window one more time, or whatever. And with regard to the business models, it's definitively about getting away of owning things to using things. And that's definitely a consumption question. From a data perspective, I have the feeling that we are still far away of being able to track how well a circular economy is being implemented or not, because it's either the data are not collected yet, or we don't even know which data we should collect, right? So I think it's still just getting close to an idea if a country or a specific sector is becoming more circular. And I know there are different initiatives like a circularity report and so forth, which aim at quantifying the implementation of the circular economy, but if I think about all the different aspects of a circular economy, like the different business models and like the creativity or the repair sector and whatsoever, I think we still would need much more data to be collected, and statistical offices are already now moaning because they have so much data to collect and to process. So I wonder if we will get there one day.
Thank you. Nick, I think that you would like to share some comment.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, given the focus of my presentation on product stewardship, bringing the sort of the product centric perspective, I think, it's really important to be focusing on the quality of products being placed on the market and durability and design for long life. And equally, the importance of new business models that support repair and reuse and second life, which is equally extending the product lifetime. I think there are increasingly examples and niche examples. Some of the regulatory reform that I mentioned in the e-product space is looking at various strategies such as differential fees for businesses placing products on the market, depending on some measure of product quality or durability. And so I think we're starting to try and promote those, but I'd sort of look to Europe perhaps, and the eco-design and the energy labeling, and France with the repairability index for some really kind of leading examples in that space in terms of policy levers.
Thank you, Nick. I noticed that actually there's two questions in the chat. The first actually directed towards I think that Katerina, that you're in better position to answer this, is that what can other African nations maybe those ones with less financial resources to learn from the South African circular economy initiative. And in the broader sense, in what extent is circularity possible for developing countries in general? So,
yeah, I think I love the question. But actually, Africa is quite good in its circularity. Eh? People do it out of necessity. So just because people don't call it circularity or circular economy, they have done that for decades, and they're actually quite far ahead. Even if you look at building constructions in more indigenous communities and how they actually build structures, the informal sector, how they're reusing construction waste. I think there's a prime example in Soweto, where someone is actually really using construction waste, making bricks out of that. In that, while he makes bricks, he capacitates the youths. They're building shacks, actually quite good and stable shacks in the backyards of owners. And once they have been rented out and all the fees have been paid back, he actually gives the ownership over to the owner of the land. So this is a very like circular economy model of using an input that is regarded as waste while he capacitates youth, creating jobs and employment and creating other income streams for people, which is a really beautiful circular economy model. I do think the circular economy is definitely possible for developing countries because they're doing it already. The problem here is that we start to see a shift, especially in South Africa. I think other countries, Rwanda and Kenya, is very much a key driver on the continent around circularity. They also have roadmaps in place. They have already banned certain materials as well, plastic bags. Bans not always are the best idea, right? Because it can actually enter up back into the country illegally, meaning that then there is no waste management in place to deal with materials as well. So we very much need to context specifically implement solutions. Africa is not Africa. It's so many different countries and cultures, and that also applies to the rest of the developing world. But there are massive initiatives happening on the continent and in other countries across the globe. And I think here it is very much around sitting together around the table. And the African Circular Economy Network, we were very much looking also at a South-South collaboration where we learn actually from places like India or in different regions so that we actually can connect certain initiatives and potentially transfer some of the knowledge as well. Again, it has to be contextualized, it has to be made specific, and it has to be broken down for the stakeholder. So that's a really, really key takeaway.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. That's a good insight. I noted there's another question in the chat, but it's directed to, I think, Stefan. But because, for the interest of the time, that we need to move on. But Stefan, could you please look into the chat as about how you actually you make sure the data can be verified? If they can actually respond to the chat, that would be great. So
yeah. I will do.
Yeah, thank you. And then maybe we need to move to the next slot, second slot. Yeah, thank you. This is really by Celine Shilke. Sorry if I didn't pronounce the family name correctly. Just excuse me. Yeah, so it's over to you, Celine.
Thank you so much. At first, thank you for having me here. I think you will, you have my slides, and I just give you a sign to move on to the next slide, if it would work like this. So, hello everybody.
Okay,
my name is Celine Schielke. I'm from the DKIMR in Frankfurt in Germany, and I'm part of the networking and transfer project RESWIN. And today I will give you a brief insight into the funding measure Resource Efficient Circular Economy Innovative Product Cycles, or short RECIPROC. It's supported by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. As part of its FONA strategy, it's a platform for the research for climate protection and greater sustainability. Next, please. One back, yes, thank you. Towards the circular economy. So I think all of you know that worldwide there are more resources consumed than the Earth can supply. And we have an increasing consumption of raw materials worldwide. For example, in Germany, the annual consumption amounts to 17 tons per capita, and this is twice as high as the global average. So this is an expression for the current linear economy of raw materials, so extraction, production, use, and disposal. And yeah, the high raw material consumption also has ecological consequences. So every extraction, every processing of raw material has an impact on the environment and goes hand in hand with the intensification of climate change. So one solution could be the resource-efficient circular economy, where the value of products and their materials is maintained within the economy for as long as possible, and where we reuse and recycle instead of dispose. So the aim of the funding measure is the transformation of the linear economy into largely closed raw material cycles to preserve a world worth living in for future generations. So we must fundamentally change our current way of life. And that's where the funding measure Reciproc starts. Next slide, please. So some facts about the funding measure Reciproc. So 25 research projects are supported in this funding measure, about a duration of 3.5 years, and they started all in summer 2019 and ended at least in this year in March. So we also have this one networking and transfer project, RESWIN, where I'm part of. So yeah, our job is to provide an internal and external network of the research projects. We promote the exchange and their sustainability assessment activities, and we also support the dissemination of their results and their transfer into economic practice. So the 25 projects focused on common R&D themes, such as the development of new business models, eco-design concepts, or digital technologies to make a valuable contribution on the way to a resource-efficient circular economy. So next. Yes, and as I said, there are 25 projects, so they address a broad range of sectors and very different products. So I'll just give you a brief insight in this few minutes. So the first projects cluster deal with the optimized use, or respectively the recovery, of high quality recyclates, such as textile fibers, as you can see here in the left corner, or plastics, building materials and components, and also upcycled furniture. We have other projects with the objective to general developments on the topic of blockchain and digital technologies. So it would be perfect if you can click for the next image puzzle. Yes. So for digital technologies and networks for the processing of what we call waste. So for example, of plastic or used tires and also metal scrap. And yeah, for the most project, please next click. Yes, it has been shown that they make an additional contribution to sustainable development compared to previous recycling processes. Above all, through an increase in the substitution of primary material by secondary materials, higher quality recyclates, and a reduction in energy consumption. Next, please. Yes, we also had a few projects that deal with the extension of the lifespan of products or individual components, such as electronic or electric devices by repair and trade of second-hand equipment, the development of new business or rental models for the reuse of packaging materials or furniture, textiles, also e-cargo bikes, repair-friendly product designs, for example, for modular smartphones and freezers, or the refurbishment of industrial tools. So next, please. Yes, another objective was also the optimization and expansion of remanufacturing in the field of urban electric mobility, for example, cargo bikes, of capital goods, used parts, and also production systems. And we also have projects that focus on new mobility concepts. So next, please. Beside the other results, they show that there is no uniform business model for the extension of product lifetime. So fundamentally, the attitude and mindset of our society must change. And this remains a task for all of us. So next, please. Yes. So an overview of the goals and the measures of the funding measure is provided by the Reciproc image film that is linked on YouTube. And yeah, the final publication that provides an insight on all of the results of the 25 research projects and also includes identified barriers to implementation and recommendations for political action. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Celine. Now, do we have one quick question for Celine?
I could ask a question if
Yep.
well, thank you for the presentation. It was great to see all these excellent examples of closed loop recycling and upcycling and product life extension. Do you have I mean, looking across this broad range, do you have any insights into how we can, I suppose, go the next step and kind of scale up from these niche examples to making it mainstream? You know, what are the kind of important policies or levers to assist in that?
Yeah, thank you. So at first, we have a lot of political action to do. So it's about first the legal framework. So we have no definition, no uniform definition of circular economy in the German law. So that's the first point. And for the upscaling, so we need at least also more place for piloting. So we have a lot of projects they just started, but they need to, as you say, upscale their products and their apps or digital technologies, and therefore we need more pilot funding measures and also the financial support. And I think that's one of the biggest political actions we have to make. So we need the support for these funding measures and the projects. And that's, I think, the most important thing.
Thank you, Celine. Okay, so now we can move on to the further presentations. Alex, I hand over the chair to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Xin. So let's move on. And the next presenter is Jean-Pierre from the University of Gustave Eiffel in France. So I would like to invite him. He's here. Yeah, I can see his name. So the floor is yours. If Jean-Pierre can hear us. Hello? I don't know, Mr. Dosulin, can you hear us?
Professor Stefanakis, I suggest that maybe we move on to one of the presenters.
Sorry.
We can...
let's move to the next one and see maybe if he's back, we can have his presentation.
Exactly. I have the presentation from Jean-Pierre Dosulin. Coming next.
So the next one is Bernd Oehlermann, if I'm pronouncing correctly, from South Africa. Yes, he's here. So maybe a little bit early, but
it's
the floor
okay.
is yours.
Thank you. If I can just get to my presentation. And I assume I have control of it. So
yes, please try now.
I'm just waiting for it. It's okay.
I just gave you the control, Professor Oehlermann. Mr. Oehlermann, you have control.
But this is not my presentation that you have up here.
Oh, sorry.
So it's great to have the control of someone else's presentation. Yes. I think that would work very funny.
But I think it's better we use your slides.
Yes, yeah, no, I think so too.
Maybe just move forward after that, after these slides.
Please try now, Mr. Brand.
Okay, I still don't see my slides.
Shall
I just try and share it from my side?
Jean-Pierre is here. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Okay, so if you don't mind, Mr. Oehlermann, we can follow the schedule now.
I'm waiting. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. So Jean-Pierre, without more delay, the floor is yours.
Okay. May you share my slide, please?
We can see the slides.
Okay, thank you. Bien, hello, my name is Jean-Pierre Dussonin. I'm assistant professor at Université Austral de Chile in the Economics Institute and research associate at the Université Gustave Eiffel in Paris, close to the Disney World. I'm going to have a presentation that is titled Circular Economy Approach to the Municipal Solid Waste Management in Paris. Please, next slide. Okay, let me illustrate. I'm thinking about the relationship between circular economy and waste. Of course, cities require urban and industrial processes to develop their circular economy and the economy, including housing, education, health, and other services for the people, for the citizen. As a massive cities, Paris gives an useful focus for researching SICTON. SICTON is the Metropolitan Agency of Waste Management in charge of 2.5 million of waste within the Paris region. The European Parliament directive suggests to apply the circular economy framework to prevent or reduce the negative landfill externalities on environment. And within this context, this paper or this study aims to explore different hypothetical scenarios to showcase the opportunities to improve the municipal solid waste management in Paris. We justify the circular economy closed-the-loop promotion could assist to limit the waste disposal, and this exploratory research analyzed the municipal solid waste pathway using Sraffa value theory, Piero Sraffa's theory, and study the consequence of the circular economy solution on the selection of waste treatment techniques. And this is to analyze if the municipal solid waste processes justify a system of subsidies in Paris. Next slide, please. Okay. Generally speaking about landfilling, and landfill create an obvious and warning problem for the human health and the biosphere. To change the initial situation of waste disposal, we propose to study a particular problem, and we will address it across an incineration process. We assume that from the 70s, all the waste was incinerated in Paris. So, waste treatment plant in Ivry-Paris was system, and this center has a treatment capacity of 760,000 tons of household waste for a year. And this research introduced the valorization or incineration process and composite process. Valorization process needs a waste subsidy to function. For example, this cost can be subsidized up to 25% in the city of Clermont-Ferrand, in the sector of France. And other example is about the composting process that in Greater Lyon, the amount is close to 50%. Next slide, please. Okay, this study used the Sraffa theory to calculate the relative price and the profit rate of the resource on the municipal solid waste, landfilling, incineration, and composite alternative to study the consequence of the circular economy paradigm on the selection on waste treatment techniques. In this slide, the price system is modeled with a vector in column PT for the pricing and by putting the rate on the profit. We propose that matrix A and B are a square matrix and not singular, and PT being an eigenvector lambda or price. As we can see in the equation, this method permits to analyze if the municipal solid waste processes justify a system of subsidy in Paris. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, because this is a lot of maths, it's not for this kind of conference. Next slide, please. Next. Okay, perfect. So let me continue with the reference and results. First, I would like to present you the results of landfilling. From an economic point of view, the system can be represented as a rate of profit equals to minus 33%. This value does not take the cost for the landfill service, of course. As shown above, landfill is economically unsustainable, and we argue that society should consider giving compensation for each ton of landfill waste. To charge the landfill disposal practice is an initial situation to something more sustainable, we propose an incineration process. So we will now to get the value from the residues, and the circular economy could, in principle, regenerate any of the category of valuable input as energy, for example. The incineration is a process that uses labor, energy, capital, and waste to produce energy, and the second arrow presents you the result of incineration process. From an accounting perspective, the system can be represented as the rate of return P equals to 0. This value does not pay the cost for the incineration service too. And Tomit et al. Argued a subsidy policy to influence the quantity and quality of municipal waste and operation of system of waste to energy related to this issue. Zero Waste Europe is right to implement a subsidized and financial incentive for the use of incineration. On the contrary side, Ma et al. Disagree with this view of implement a subsidy of waste. The influence of the oil price and the electric price refuse something to running process of the burning power plant. Next slide, please. Let me continue with referring to the result about the composting process. I would like to present the result about that, and the system can be represented as a rate of return equals to minus 33.2. This value, of course, does not pay the cost for the composting service. Thus, the negative value of composting may justify maintaining a subsidy. Moreover, Shen has recently suggested a subsidy for the negative profit in the municipal solid waste composting service unit in Taiwan, and inheres point that the government composting subsidies proposed by the European Union Waste Directive help an industry by allowing the producer to be economically sustainable. Next slide, please. Perfect. Finally, in this last slide, I would like to report some concluding remarks that I'm working on now. And first, I would like to say that landfill is economically unsustainable, and the system can be represented as a negative rate of returns that does not pay the cost for the landfilling service. So this is the reason why we need the subsidies. The move from the incineration to urban composting, we know that the selling price of the composting poses a financial problem in the system of value of Sarafa, and hence subsidies will be necessary for the successful implementation. Then 1 ton of composting maybe can be subsidized at the same price of the landfill. In some authors as Conrad, Sauson, and Inghers claim a subsidy policy or tax to stimulate the capacities of company to innovate in this issue of the landfilling problem and process. This result opened the door to the study in the next paper, maybe, some application of the Sarafa value theory to capture the links between the structural feature of economic and ecological processes and their path of sustainable growth. And this reveals the importance of the economic and the ecological characteristics of the system in determining the cross-the-loop opportunity in each resource. Next slide, please. And if you are interested in my article or other articles about the circular economy, please visit my research guide or the web page. And thank you for your time. Have a good day for all the colleagues.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre, for your presentation. If there are any questions from the audience. I don't see one, but maybe I would like not exactly to ask you, but to see your opinion. I found it very interesting that you are somehow studying together incineration and composting. From my view, when we talk about circularity, circular economy, incineration is not a preferable option because, first of all, you practically eliminate a resource, and also you run always the risk, as with recycling, that you become addicted with waste production because you want to produce small amounts of energy. So why would you suggest subsidize for incineration? That would be my question. For composting, I understand because you are using a waste, a biological, to produce another product that has a use. But for incineration, I'm not convinced this is the right path.
This is a very really good question because, for example, you know, in Paris there is incineration, not landfilling because it's closed, but incineration and composting, and the authorities try to implement a fuel industry close to the Sena River, the incinerator, but there is some remarks about the profit and the subsidy. I agree with you, of course, but in the model we try to compare using the Serapha value theory how we can to propose different profit for different kind of waste management system. But there is one issue that we not consider in this model is the political issue, for example, and because some people in the neighbor don't want the landfill, prefer the composting, but the composting is complicated if you want to do the composting in the city. And this kind of issue that we are now discussing with the people, because we need to approach our model to the reality, for example.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is a long discussion still to see what would really be a viable and preferable technological option when we talk about circularity in the waste management field. The discussion is going on apparently. So thank you very much for your contribution in this. And let's move to the next presenter. So Mr. Erleman, now it's your time.
Thank you very much,
Alex. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I just need to manage to move my slide. There we go. Okay, right. So I'm going to talk to you about a concept that's called eco-industrial parks. But I think what is important to understand is that we are looking at this from a much larger context, okay? And that includes the circular economy, okay? So we all know and are probably familiar, maybe have firsthand experience of some of the issues that I'm just briefly listing on this slide. You know, emissions, loss of biodiversity. Some of us have, you know, been engaged in conversations where we realize that a consumer-driven approach no longer is viable. We need to find new ways of doing things, right? And so a typical solution to that for us, of course, presently, especially with the limited resources we have on the planet, is, of course, that we need to start considering the circular economy, okay? I think the point of this slide really is these, you know, because of all these crises and the things that we are facing as humanity, we need to start looking at things differently. Okay, so the circular economy, I'm not going to talk much about this. I think everyone that's here probably knows more than I do. Okay, I just shared, you know, some diagrams there from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and from UNEP. And this is just really as a point of reference for everyone to think about. But I think what I can perhaps highlight is, again, that it is relating to a new definition of value. Okay, so traditionally, value has always been associated with financial value. It is no longer just financial value that we're talking about. It involves a lot more. And I think this was also mentioned by one or two speakers earlier as well. You know, the circular economy looks at a systems approach to things. Okay, so why are eco-industrial parks a route to circular economy? So I'm just going to give you a bit of background about what eco-industrial parks are. So effectively, it's an intervention that targets an industrial park or estate or economic zone. There are many terms for this, and trying to assist that whole grouping of firms to transition to become more sustainable. Okay, it uses an approach that's based on continuous improvement. Okay, so you will obviously know as well as I do, we don't achieve things overnight. It is a continual process. Okay, so continuous improvement is central to what an eco-industrial park or an ERP is. I think the third probably core approach to an eco-industrial park is collaboration. Now, if we talk about circular economy, it requires considerable collaboration and increased collaboration among people. Maybe I can just pause. Haven't you found it ironic that human beings have the ability to communicate, yet we do not use it to collaborate more? Instead, very often we try and build walls and say, no, I'm not going to work with another person. I want to compete with you. Anyway, separate conversation probably for a bottle of wine. But eco-industrial parks also need to be inclusive. Okay, so it really looks at the inclusivity of everyone that participates in the circular economy. Okay, and Katarina made a point earlier about the justness of a just transition. Okay, in South Africa, this is very important. I guess it's probably as important in many other countries as well. But therefore, the inclusivity needs to be addressed intentionally. An eco-industrial park approach also provides a platform or a framework for companies and industrial park entities, those are the operators or management companies that run those spaces, to be neutral or apolitical in their approach. Okay, already touched on the systems approach, and that's effectively what it's about. But it's also intended to be practical. Okay, so bottom line, an EIP approach is about creating a more resource-efficient space. In this context, industrial parks. So it's very focused on industry, so not so much on commercial or residential or other kinds of applications. And that then enhances the collaboration between them all. Okay. This last 5 columns that I'm sharing there, those are the 5 main pillars of the International ERP Framework. This was developed by UNIDO, World Bank, and GIZ in 2017. I'm not going to go into that. I put some links in here for you to go and read up on that. And of course, the SDGs are extremely relevant to this as well. Okay, right. Next slide. So if we talk about why eco-industrial parks are important, and what that ERP response is, I think the first one is, and I've already touched on it, but I cannot stress it enough. It needs a systems approach. Okay. Those of you who have been engaging with the challenges that we as humanity are facing will know that, we no longer can look at a problem linearly. Okay. It needs to be a systems, it needs to be a collaborative approach. Okay. And it involves everyone. So I just listed really in the South African context who these are. It needs to look at a win-win approach. Okay. Which looks at economic, environmental, and social benefits. Okay. Again, the ERP response brings forward a multidimensional, multidisciplinarity to address the complexity of the challenges that we're facing, again, within the context specifically of industry. Okay, so I don't know well, I actually know some of the examples in other countries, but in South Africa specifically, it's always nice and good for government to put forward a position, but we need to enable industry to actually move along on the journey with us. So the South African approach, I'm not going to stand still too much on it, but in South Africa, green economy is one of 7 priority sectors of government. The growth areas look at the 5 I's. I'm not going to go into those again as well. You can reach much faster than I can. Then special economic zones and industrial parks, that's what those 2 acronyms are standing for there, are targeted spatial interventions in the South African government's focus. And of course, industrial spaces are seen as catalysts for economic growth. Okay, there are 3 main areas for this in South Africa. We're looking at water, energy, and waste, and of course, technical and policy-related interventions. Okay, so highlights of this approach in South Africa, and that really contributes towards a circular economy, partnership and collaboration. Coordination and facilitation. Okay, those are absolutely critical. Integration of multiple initiatives and approaches to this. Okay, and then really gearing the collective activities that are taking place. Okay, you cannot do this by yourself. And we've used multiple platforms for this, one of them being an ERP roundtable, which we started more than 3 years ago, and it's proven extremely successful. Okay, now the actual impact of eco-industrial parks in South Africa, I give you a bit of background there further to where cleaner production comes from. So SCP was mentioned earlier, so sustainable consumption and production. In South Africa, we use the term more of RECP, which is resource efficient and cleaner production, but they're pretty much the same. Dates back to 1991, okay? But in South Africa, what has happened through, especially the Global Eco-Industrial Parks Program, which is run through UNIDO and implemented by the NCPC, we are one of 7 countries, and there's been already some significant impact in terms of policy development in the country. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has adopted an eco-industrial park approach as being central to its industrialization efforts. We've had a number of spin-off projects coming out of the process of collaboration in the country, so partnerships and collaboration are huge. We have seen improved working conditions and, of course, reduced risk economically, socially, and environmentally. But I think what is really important is if you look at this from the track record of what NCPC has done over the last number of years. We've trained quite a number of people. Katrina actually mentioned that earlier. We've trained more than 7,000 people between 2010 and 2022 on RECP, or sustainable consumption and production related issues. We have also, through an industrial energy efficiency program, saved over a period of about a decade, 6.5 terawatt hours of energy and about 6.4 million tons of CO2 equivalent gases, and obviously saved 5.3 billion rands of financial savings for companies. Okay, so this is what we've done. We're continuing doing that, but I think an eco-industrial park approach is definitely the way forward for us when we try and coordinate industry in addressing this. And with that, that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernd. That's a really nice topic. Do you have in South Africa already established such parks? I mean, is there really industrial symbiosis a thing there, or still yes, development or discussion?
No. We have 3 main parks where we're focusing our efforts on. Probably the park that is the most well developed in terms of the eco-industrial park framework indicators, there are roughly about 50 of these, is the East London IDZ, or Industrial Development Zone. They have quite a number of symbiosis activities. Example, Clarity is a plastics manufacturer that uses some of the waste that's produced by other companies in that space, to produce other products, for example. They have quite a number of energy efficient interventions as well, and currently working also on renewable energy as an alternative source for their energy production.
Okay, so it's actually a thing.
Yeah, it's moving slowly.
I see the label. I see the label industrial symbiosis park or eco-industrial, but practically it's some units, industrial units, autonomously operating.
Yeah. Look, I mean, comparatively speaking, we have roughly about 400 of these spaces in South Africa, so it's pretty much early days. Okay. But the point is, government is seeing this, and they are working on policies to support this and drive this forward. And industry, more importantly, is actually coming together. In East London, for example, the park management entity and also industry are working closely very much, not just within the park, but also outside. Mercedes-Benz, for example, is one of the larger manufacturers outside of the park, who collaborate on, waste usage, sharing of electricity, infrastructure and facilities and things like that. And that's pretty much what we're trying to go to.
Good, very good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's move to the last presentation for this session. Mr. Gustavo Rittel from Brazil.
Yes.
Okay, you are here. Perfect. So you may start.
Okay, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very thankful to be here, sharing my research with you. I'm talking from Brazil, from specifically from Florianópolis. So yeah, we're here in South Brazil, the island Florianópolis. What we are trying to do here is to become a zero waste city. I'm in this research field since from 10 years ago. I'm trying to, trying to develop like online tools to help cities to change the waste management cities into zero waste systems. So, do you change my slides, please? Okay, this is not interesting. We started this project in 2017 in Florianópolis when I was doing a master degree here. This was approved to the Municipal Innovation Forum for external resources. We have national, international academic support for this project, and we try to create. We have already one MVP running the city. No, next one, please. So this is the context that we came from with the projects as like under the ISAC collaborations, like international zero waste collaboration. We are trying to help cities to become zero waste. I invite you to know this initiative. The model that was, they have a link to article here that describe the model that you see this, how can change the help to change the cities by the living lab concepts and educations and put together all the actors. Next one, please. Next one, please. Next one. I think this is not the no. Maybe change the presentation. I can share my slides from here.
Okay, I will give you the I would make you as a host, please.
I sent a new one yesterday, but I think that's not this one.
Yes. Do you have your presentation available?
Yes, I have
share?
a presentation. Okay. Yeah.
So now your host, Mr. Riddle, if you can share your screen.
Yes, just a minute.
Mr. Riddle, you're silent. You're silenced. There it is.
Okay, do you see my presentation?
Yes, not now, but when you, there we go, yes. Apparently when you present, you get also silent. I don't know why.
I think you are muted, Gustavo.
So apparently when I'm sharing, I'm getting mute here. Just give me a second, please.
That's strange.
If I send you, you can open from there. If I send a link to you.
Yes, the presentation you sent yesterday was not timely enough uploaded to our
May you open this link here? This is my new presentation.
Yes. Okay.
It's possible.
Okay, I will download it. Just a minute.
So basically what I'm trying to do here is digitally become digitally all the value chains that concern to the planning of the municipal waste solid system of Florianopolis. So the city have aims to become a zero waste city by 2030. We have already a rate of diversion of resources of 11%, and each and if one of the services of the government are trying to make digital, so you can approach the cities and connect all these actors together in a kind of cyberspace. We start a 1.0 version that we are already running in the city, that we connect the principal systems of the city that are related to collect the data from some points of the collect system, and we are developing a new one under the WebSig technologies. So we are really going to each value chain and each actor of the system together in the same cyberspace, so can reordinate the behaviors from the virtual cyberspace to the reality through the city endorse the process. Can you open that or no?
Yes.
We are seeing the presentation. I cannot see here. Not from here. Yeah. Next one, please. Next one, please. I go just show you the system. Yes. So this is the main system, the version 1.0 that we have. This is our home page. That's in the city hall with the mirror. Do you have some indicators? No, I have like the value that was economized with landfill is about 3 million just in 2013. This year, we have saved like the 35,000 of emission of CO2 with the zero waste program here in Florianopolis, and we now have an overall rate of 11% of resource diversion of the landfill. So this is the main indicators with that we consider here now for a zero waste city perspective. We're trying to get 9% out of the landfill. Next one, please. So this is an indicator from the organic collection. We have, just from 2023, we have overall 7,000 tons of organic waste collect and delivery to the compostage field. Now the cities are paying for the local initiatives that they are composting. Is like a environment system payment. This is a very nice politics, a very innovative policy. Yes, the first city in Brazil that's approaching it the way. So if you have like a neighborhood initiative and you are collecting the organic waste and you are composing it, the city will pay for you because we are taking out of the landfill. So what we're trying to do this is I make it all digitalization of all this process. Put it together the city, put together the neighbor, put together infrastructure, and put together the actors that acting and in the system, zero waste system. Next one, please. So this is an indicator of recycled resources. You have separate by categories. That's wood, that's tires, that's glass. So these indicators are improved as well. Just in 2030, just this year, it's collected more than 12,000 tons of recycled materials, and the city saved about around like 2 million reais from taxpayers to not put these resources in the landfill. So this is a very innovative thing that we are putting how much the cities are spending with landfill as a public information in Brazil. We have a very big issue with the landfill here that's collect the resources from 23 cities around the 23 cities around Florianopolis. It's a huge amount of money that goes to the landfill. Next one, please. So this is the total of the waste that go to the landfill collected. So it's about 145 tons of waste that was disposed in the landfill. So if we calculate by a 350 reais, we are talking about 50 millions of taxpayers that go to the landfills and to the multinational company that's operating the collecting of waste from the city, to the landfills and from our own 23 cities here in the region. So this is a very new thing that we are coming up here in Florianopolis, and we are trying to push this into the local government. We still face political difficulties, to advance this system as a massive system for all the city here. Next one, please. So this is how much we save with CO2 emissions, just considering the collection of organic and recyclable resources. So we can calculate much more saving of emissions if put all the other projects together. No, I mean we can probably be saved more than 35 tons of emission of CO2 in the atmosphere. Next one, please. So this is the main infrastructure of law system plans of the national law of natural resources in Brazil. So first of all, we have the national plan, we have the state plans, and we have the intermunicipality plans, the micro regions plans, and in the 5.1 we have the municipal integrated plans of solid waste. In this dimension that we are creating this tool. No, so the next one below is it's the plans from the building construction sector. No, so the city can control another big originators of the waste of resources here with digitalization of all the process. That's what we are doing here in the 2.0 version now. No, the next one, please. So we have here, I put the link. I have the CINER here in Brazil. It's called National System of Information of Solid Resource. Is a system for the government that belongs to the federal government. And what we are trying to do, what we are doing, is create a system for the municipalities that's linked and is connected with the federal government system. So all these blocks here represents a series of indicators, in the same dimensions of concerns to the resources management. The ones that we have the SPIA is the indicators that we are already working here in the city of Florianopolis. That's CC information of construction waste collection and process unitings of resources, information of household and public collection, and information of other service and general information as well. So, the next one, please. So this we are trying to approach a system approach. Everyone was talking here in a system approach, systematic approach to circular economy. This is just a logic of matrix concept of policy management that to put different actors, different agents, and different players in the same programs, and you work together by different point of view and perspectives in the same indicators to can make organic. Organic resource organic depends of the behavior of the actor that's producing it inside of the house, the infrastructure that we have in the city, and the tax that you're gonna pay or not. So you put all these in together. It's just a logic of management that are behind the system that we are building up. This strategic agenda is like a strategic agenda for circular economy or for zero waste zero waste city dashboard construction. Next one, please. So this is our version 2.0. Since this version 1.0, I make a partnership with a geo-information company here that's have expertise and WebSeq, and geotechnology, apply geotechnological systems. So I'm developing all the requisites, all the engineering requisites to the system. So this is already done. This is the map of Florianopolis, and you have basically two interfaces of the systems. One is by desktop, that is more complex process as a construction resources collect, and I will have another one that's interface of a web app that's like Florianopolis and data use or on other applications. So we did some work here in the city, show the next one, please. These are some workflows that are already done in here, Florianopolis, for the version 2.0. We have 6 workflows ready to go to the public, to become public and to help massively the city to collect data and to become more a circular economy. And the new functions goes to digitalization of integrated workflows between multiple agents, digitalization of, I was telling you, of payment from processes from environmental services, digitalization of regular service disposal points. That's I'm telling you that we have like a app interface of the system. So a citizen is walking by the sea, see some irregular disposal of resource, can take a picture. This goes straight to the city hall, goes to the inside, opens a protocol inside the city, and that should be fixed by the city hall. So we have to create like a public and a kind of open data government for the circularity economy of the cities. I put this on the zero waste cities concept. But next one, please. This is the training that you have. I gave to the city here and to the company that operates the collection of resources and for waste. The GeoCidadão is the app that I'm telling you that we are using here. So we did this training. It's like very innovative because doesn't exist this kind of thing here yet. So it's kind of a bit everything is a little bit experimental. I say. But we are walking the way to become a zero waste city. The most of the problems I can tell you that's like a political issues. The next one, please. Yep, that's it. That's my contacts, and will be glad to share you my knowledge, my experience, and I call you to make efforts together to become more circular economy around the cities. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. I think we can open the discussion now a bit, and also to you, but to all participants. I already see a hand, Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, thank you, Gustavo. It's a really interesting presentation on the platform. Is possible to adapt this platform or apply in other cities, for example, in South America or I don't know? And what is the key issue if we want to adapt this platform?
I think the key issue will be the legal framework, because other platforms have the legal framework in the background. So I'll tell you, we have the senior, that's like a national government system from the resources government, but we don't have this kind of tools in the city. That's where the problem happens. So when you go inside the local government, they don't have tools, they don't have any kind of technological stuff to help them to plan all this complexity value chain. The resources management is a very complex thing, a very complex policy. I'm a social science. It's very, very difficult to plan. There's a lot of interest, a lot of technical problems. So I think that's the main thing. That's why I'm trying to look for now in my the PhD research is how we can create a common framework that can help cities across the world to develop a circular economy, a circular model. So I think that this is would be like the point going to be the legal framework from the cities around the world.
Thank you, Gustavo.
You're welcome. Let's make it touch. We can discuss this later.
Thank you again. Any other wants to ask something? To all participants, of course, some had to leave. We are running a bit late according to the schedule. Okay, maybe we can wrap it up. Dr. Shin, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex. Okay, also, thank you to all the presenters today. With very, stimulating presentation talks about the latest work. So I think that I hope that you all enjoyed as much as I did. I really would like to extend my appreciation to all our presenters. So I hope that you all enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, thank you also from my side. And I'm always happy to see the work carried out internationally on circular economy topics. I'm sure that the discussion will go on. Many of the topics we've seen we are discussing for long, with some agreements, disagreements, but this is why we should meet in conferences and workshops like this to exchange experiences, see what is done in other countries, and maybe this is the way forward to a common understanding also. So thank you all, and all the best for the continuation of the forum.
Yeah,